Well, it is another Pittsburgh Hockey Now live chat. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms. It's about 4:40. I'm a few minutes late. I actually had a meeting prior to this that, people, it's a meeting. They want to talk. So, real quick, we're going to run down some of the most important topics that I know you're talking about, that you want to talk about, that, first of all, there's this, which felt like this. Some of you are blaming this. Some of you are wondering why this guy isn't like your number one center. But overall, we're going to get into all of that, from the young players to the losses to the locker room, plus, of course, your questions. The one thing I think it's so important to have an honest to God discussion about is scapegoats. I don't understand necessarily where some of these scapegoat issues come from. It almost seems like there's a predetermined opinion that this player is bad, therefore when the Penguins lose, it is their fault. I have no idea how in the world Arturs Shilovs came to catch strays last night. The guy actually played pretty well. He allowed 3 goals, one of which was a power play slam to the backside that the pass never should have been allowed to come across the crease like it did. So not his fault. The second goal, he's got it. It hits off someone rolling past David Perron's foot and somehow dribbles in. Again, not your goalie's fault. And the third goal, Claude Giroux from 7-8 feet away finds a Christmas present that kicked off of Michael Amadio's skate that Erik Karlsson thought he had. Listen, a guy scores from 7 or 8 feet on a bang-bang play. You're blaming the goalie? That part I didn't get whatsoever. The Kevin Hayes vitriol, I didn't get that at all. Of all of the Penguins' problems on Thursday night against Ottawa, of all of the problems, you're telling me Kevin Hayes was your culprit? Now, there were clearly some issues. The issues are big ones with the Penguins. Let me pull up the chat here. Make sure that, how's the sound, by the way? I bought a new little microphone at an electronics store up the street on St. Catharines. I am in Montreal. It looks like this little bad boy will travel with me pretty well. The other one was just too darn big, and I put that in the home studio. But anyway, the Penguins' issues are big. How in the world do you blame a coach for a defenseman drifting 5 feet out of position, allowing a passing lane that a Mack truck could drive through to the back post? You can't blame Dan Muse for that. You can't blame Mike Stothers running the penalty kill for Chris Letang taking the wrong angle on the puck. I mean, as much as we might want to, I know as much as you want to, sometimes blame Erik Karlsson for every turnover. When he thinks he's got it on his stick, he's ready to go forward, and it catches a guy's skate just in a perfect way, and the guy doesn't even realize it. I mean, did you guys see? I put it in the story, the Pittsburgh Hockey Now insider story, and let me share the screen here with you, because I think it's probably a good launching point for our discussion. And here, I'll play the Chris Letang part for you. Watch Chris Letang, Erik Karlsson's reaction right there. We've all had that reaction, right? To heck with it. Just, I think that summed up so much of the team. The trade clearly the Penguins trade probably could not be working any better for them. Tristan Jarry gets hurt in his third game with the Oilers. Non-contact knee injury. They don't even know how bad it is. Like today, they don't know. Stuart Skinner obviously didn't play lights out against the Oilers over the weekend. And Brett Kulak in 2 games with the Penguins certainly hasn't impressed, has he? In fact, I stopped short. If Kulak had been with the Penguins for several weeks and Dan Muse had paired Kulak and Jack St. Ivany together, I probably would have criticized Muse a good bit, because that pairing has been caved in 2 straight games. It shouldn't be together in any way long term, but obviously that pairing has a bigger picture in mind than the individual game. They're trying to see what they can get out of Kulak. They're trying to see what they can get out of St. Ivany. But also, Dan Muse was like the little Dutch boy putting his finger in one part of the dam, trying to plug a leak in the lost leads. And by having 2 defensemen that you can break up late in the game and put with different pairings to shore up the defense, that was what he was thinking. So it's all sort of backfired with the Penguins. Everything is backfiring lately, isn't it? And that seems like a good point to get to some of your questions. I'm going to have to grab my plug. I just realized after the meeting, my laptop doesn't have a whole lot of juice. There it is. Never fails when you're in a little bit of a hurry. Everything has to take an extra moment. Guess you got a good look at my suite here in Montreal. I stay at this little hotel on René Lévesque, which is a block off of St. Catharines, half a mile from the arena. I've now stayed here probably 6-8 times over the last few years. I've become a VIP. Yeah, I get the upgrade. What can I say? I'm not going to complain about it whatsoever. Diana says, don't know how soon they'll get out of this funk. They are truly snake bitten right now. How many teams have you seen endure the 2 calls the Penguins absorbed on Thursday? Okay, you get one. NHL referees, they'll make a bad penalty call here and there, part of the game. Artur Sheloff should be allowed to poke check the puck and cover it. Good Lord, you watch it even closer, you realize Sheloff's never actually tripped Stützle. Didn't actually touch him. Brutal call. Okay, the PK doesn't come through. However, the goal, the overturned goal, absolute garbage. And I don't know if I put this on Twitter. I put it in the article, I think the Dan's Daily, I put it in the report card. Let me see if I have it handy here. No, I do not. So anyway, I was able to grab I can actually pull it up on Twitter. I actually had the screen still of the puck about a foot and a half from Ricard Raquel. His stick is out front. That was Jake Sanderson's stick coming through Raquel, contacting goaltender Linus Ullmark. Okay, let me share the screen here, just in case. I know some of you are YouTuber-only people. And by the way, I'm going to have to break you of that here pretty soon, because our new subscriber platform has like video and chat features, and it's really, really cool. But we're still working on it. We were 2 weeks out 4 weeks ago, but we're going to get there. We've hired some third party tech people to come in and alleviate the stress and the workload on our staff, and we're getting there. So here, take a look at this. Can you believe they actually called this goaltender interference? Raquel, his skates outside the blue paint never were in the blue paint. His stick out front never touched Olmark. That was Sanderson that did it. I understand if it happens in real time that a referee might get fooled for a moment. But good gosh almighty. We get to watch it again. The NHL up in Toronto, they get to watch it, and they're like, yeah, that was interference. Absolutely unbelievable. I thought Ryan Shea was appropriate when he said, if that goes in, I think in my mind, it changes things. And I think, yeah, if that goal is meant to stand, the Penguins actually might have life, but Toronto took that away from them. Let's go to Michael. I haven't seen Sid look so disinterested since Gensel was traded. Something's a little funky with the Penguins captain. Obviously, the last 3 games have not been his best, whether it's the weird and awkwardness of passing Mario Lemieux. Don't forget, and I think I mentioned this last week, this is par for the course. When Sid got to 1,000 points, he had 1 assist in 3 games leading up to it. When he got to 1,500 points, which was another huge milestone, he had no points in the 2 previous games. Like he was 3 points, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 3 points, nothing until he got to his 1,500th point. And then he had a 3-point game. Actually, he had a 3-point game both in his game that he got 1,000 points and 1,500. Take that for what it's worth. The top line last night. And I think this becomes one of the issues that Dan Muse is trying to solve, trying in vain to solve. Because you saw on Thursday, Crosby, Raquel, and Rust, they had offensive chances. They had zone time. They had pressure. It was never followed up. The second line, helmed by Tommy Novak with Mantha and Brazeau, they had some pokes in the third period. They, here and there, they might have had a little bit of offensive zone time, but by and large, they were caved in as well. They were playing down in the defensive zone. Tommy Novak had a 31% Corsi. That only put more pressure on Muse to try to shelter the third line with Ben Kindle, Rutger McGroarty, and Kevin Hayes. That line, by and large, started their shifts on the good end of the ice, but they by and large finished their shifts on the bad end of the ice. To have a negative Corsi with such an advantage of starting your shifts in the offensive zone, that's bad news. Now look, Ben Kindle deserves a dozen mulligans if he needs them. The line just wasn't very good. And so when you take out the middle of the lineup, what happens? Right. So you've got the first line coming out, getting the puck back in the offensive zone, creating some pressure, and then the rest of the team sort of letting them down. That deflates and deflates and deflates, and Ottawa never really feels pressured or hurried or worried about it. Michael, another shot at the refs. I don't know. Every season, every hockey fan says every ref is terrible. Thursday, though, was a special kind of what in the hell are you doing? In fact, it was the same guy who made both calls. The NHL doesn't publicize any disciplinary measures or game grades. It used to be. I don't know who the head of the officiating is anymore. Andy Van Helman was the first one, and then I think it went to Dave Stewart for a minute. But the head of officiating sits down or sends these guys a grade the next day, like, hey, you need to watch this, you can't do that, do this, so on and so forth. A little bit of some guardrails. I can only imagine what those guardrails were today. I cannot get the temperature in this room optimum. It's either cold or it's hot. Let's see here. Dan, you're on a hot mic. I'm sure you heard about Tim Saunders. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sound is good. Okay. Turnover Dog says, I've got tissues for your issues. Sure. Gable Fisk says, I sound like a radio operator in a B-29 Fortress. Interesting. You're all saying the sound is good. I'll have to listen back and see. Unfortunately, I literally bought this half an hour ago, plugged it in for a meeting, and you're all telling me, I wonder maybe if I turn down the gain, maybe that's better. Let's see what Turnover Dog has to say here. An actual question. Do the guys causing the problems know they are causing the problems? I think I know what you're digging at. All right, Turnover Dog. I'm going to dig into the Chris Letang situation here because it is a little bit of something, and there's just no way you can really sugarcoat what it's becoming. And I'll put there. By the way, if you don't subscribe to Pittsburgh Hockey Now, PHN Plus, please do so. Use coupon code DAN10, all one, no space, DAN10, DAN10, if you're really exact. Get $10 off your PHN Plus subscription. I've got some insider stuff in today's, aptly named Insider. Do guys know they are playing, the problems? Well, Chris Letang, by his actions on the ice on Thursday, I knew that he knew he wasn't having a good game. How I knew that was he was giving acres of space to the rush. He was backing up, playing big gaps, so on and so forth. Oh, okay. I improved things by turning down the gain. Well, I apologize, everybody. Thanks for hanging with me this far. Maybe I should I turn it down a little further, or should I leave it? Because they're actually the gain knob just keeps turning in a circle. There's no end to it. There's no 9 and 3 where it stops. You can just keep going around in a circle. That's kind of funky. That I don't like. But listen, I got it for $75 on sale from a local little electronics store that doesn't want to sell podcast mics. I wasn't going to complain. Okay. Anyway, I knew Chris Letang knew he was struggling by how he was playing after the first couple of minutes. Chris Letang is one to be jumping forward at the blue line to defend hard. He plays a very tight gap because he knows he can skate with any forward, or he knew. Last night, he was backing in, which actually, for a defenseman, exacerbates your problems. But in that moment, it feels safer. You've got more space. You've got more time to react. And it's sort of one of those counterintuitive things that every defenseman does when they're not feeling it. So from that standpoint, yeah, I saw that Chris Letang saw that he wasn't playing well. Who else do you want to kind of throw under the bus? And I'm not going to throw Chris Letang deep, under the bus and back it over and do that. I cringe at the pile-ons that social media can create. It really, look, there's 17 other skaters, 5 other, other people have to pick up the slack. Furthermore, ask yourself a serious question. Now, I know a lot of you are going to answer it in a very self-serving way to, sort of further an opinion, but in the cold reality, what else could the Penguins do? Harrison Brunick clearly isn't ready for that sort of elevated role. Connor Clifton is a third pairing defenseman. You put him in that sort of 22-minute-a-night role where he's playing against the opposition's top line players and being asked to produce some offense, that's going to go poorly. Jack St. Ivany certainly is not going to be any better at that. St. Ivany is a stay-home defenseman, and right now it looks like he's really just trying to get his legs underneath of him at the NHL level. This is not the guy that I broke down his game, I guess it would have been January of 24, just before he was called up. No, I'm sorry, January 24, because last season he spent, 24, 25, yeah. When I went up to Wilkes-Barre to scout Tristan Brose and some others, and here's this 6'4" defenseman who just leapt off the page at me. I wrote about him, and everyone's like, oh, who's this guy? He's in the NHL, a few weeks, a month later, but I haven't seen that same guy. I haven't seen the Incredible Hulk that I saw in Wilkes-Barre and at first some games in the NHL when he was tossing people out of the crease like a bouncer at Roadhouse. He was literally doing that. They're just shoving guys out of the crease, keeping Joel Blomqvist's eyes clear in Wilkes-Barre, kept the Pittsburgh Penguins goalie's eyes clear for a moment in the NHL. And, guys, when the adrenaline wears off, games regress to the mean. And I haven't seen that same St. Ivany, injuries and all this other stuff. Long story short, you don't want him playing second pair either. The only possible option would be Matt Dumba. And I know a lot of you aren't fans of that. So what are you going to do? There really isn't an option here other than to try to protect Chris Letang. Hope that it's an injury, not father time. Hope that you can put him in some situations to succeed, and that begins to snowball instead of the negative, which seems to be snowballing. Let's go to Anyway, need Dubas to take a clear stance. Try to make the playoffs, so spend and trade, or let the team rot and go for a high draft pick. Seems the latter. It really, yes, they want to make the playoffs. And we've talked about this on these live chats. Kyle Dubas built the best team he could and with the parameters of setting up for the future. And that doesn't mean losing. That just means, giving guys like Justin Brazeau and Ryan Shea and Parker Wotherspoon and Arturs Shelovs, giving them a chance. And Anthony Mantha. Rick Dhaliwal of Vancouver kind of did a great little breakdown of the Buffalo Sabres, or their problems, rather. And what Rick kind of very astutely pointed out, the teams that get stuck in rebuilding hell are the teams that get to the middle and then really try to go for it. Doesn't work that way. if you try to jump over steps, which is what Buffalo did back in the day, years ago with Kyle Okposo and so on and so forth, none of those trades worked out. So they went from, trying to jump middle to top to middle to low middle, bottom. They're still paying for all the draft picks they gave away when they were on their way up. You're not going to see Kyle Dubas make that mistake. I don't think you're going to see Kyle Dubas make that mistake. You're probably not going to see Kyle Dubas make that mistake. I don't think you'll see Kyle Dubas. The reason I maybe joke is I don't know what the Hoffmans are thinking. They might come in and they might need playoff revenue or increased ticket sales or what have you. And they very well, other owners have done this, look at the general manager and say, hey, can you kind of speed this up a little bit? That would be the only thing I could see derailing the process for the Penguins. Let's go to Michael here. What does Michael say? Kulak can end his consecutive game streak anytime. I've been a little disappointed. I thought he was going to be the Penguins' best left side defenseman right away. Turns out Parker Wotherspoon, after this trade, has had a couple of really strong games, actually. Wotherspoon was a bit of an animal Thursday. He might have been the best Penguin. Well, I take that back because Crosby, Rust, Raquel was the best player on the ice for the Penguins. But Wotherspoon was probably the best defenseman. Let's see here. Big Guy says we need an actual defensive D-man. Well, that is Kulak. That is Jack St. Ivany. To a certain extent, that's Ryan Shea and Wotherspoon. Listen, guys, Big Guy, I know exactly what's rolling through the noggin when you type that. The era, the time of the big defensive defenseman is over. If you can't skate, if you can't join the play, the Darian Hatchers of the world are gone. Extinct. Poof. They can't keep up. They can't compete in this day and age. Hal Gill might have been the last of the Mohicans. He really might have been. Even Zdeno Chara had some component of offense to his game. As great as he was in the defensive zone with the 20-foot wingspan, there was more to his game. Let's go to, let's see here, Michael Gregg here. Not sure what metrics. I don't want to comment on any of my colleagues. Yeah, Taylor has told me as well that Graves and Clifton, when they're together, one of the Penguins' best the best defensive pairing. I don't know where she's getting it. I'm not commenting on any colleagues. And I would hope they share the same. Gable says, I'm real concerned about the Hoffmans. This situation sounds an awful lot like Frank McCourt's ownership of the Dodgers, which was a complete disaster as he had no liquid cash. There are questions. There are real questions that the Hoffmans are going to have to answer. I would hold Gary Bettman to his word, because when I was in Stockholm, put my hand up, asked the commissioner a question, sitting 10 feet from him. Didn't like the question very much. I don't think he saw it coming. I kind of should have. After Taylor asked him about the streaming issues, I followed up with, is there an update on the Penguins' sale? What can you say about it and the protracted nature of it? He's like, well, it'd be inappropriate for me to comment, but I can assure you, if there is a sale, both the Penguins and the league will make sure it's in good hands. Now, this is also the same league that approved the guy from Coudersport who the Rigas did jail time, right? I mean, with the cable company up there, they did jail time, right? The guy from the Islanders who did jail time. The guy from the Predators who did jail time. Boots, who damn near owned the Penguins for a minute. The guy from Blackberry, Jim Balsillie, who tried to backdoor a relocation of the Penguins to Hamilton. The clown car of owners that came and went with the Arizona Coyotes, the Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes, back and forth. They didn't know. They didn't care. Who else am I missing? I mean, seriously, the NHL has had a conglomerate, they have had a boat full of bad actors or people who couldn't afford an NHL team owning an NHL team. In fact, I think the one guy, in fact, was indeed laundering. Is that the Islanders guy who was kind of trying to launder money through the anyway? Yeah, it's Peter Pocklington in Edmonton couldn't afford Wayne Gretzky. Crazy sort of carnival barker type owner back in the couldn't really afford Gretzky either. So the league has a long history of bad owners. And I didn't mention Howard Baldwin, who couldn't afford it in the end either. I saw the oh no, that was Ron Burkle, who's actually an exec producer on Landman, the Billy Bob Thornton. I was watching something else recently, rolling through the streaming, and I saw Howard Baldwin. Saw his name. I was like, what? I digress. The point being, I think the NHL has to probably maintain a high level here, but also, listen, we're going to dig into this too. I am not a business reporter. When a venture capitalist realized that I did not have a business degree, that I was pretty much a witch doctor, started a company successfully, and was like, oh, what this one venture capitalist would do was start using slang, EBITDA, EBITA. It's basically your profit earnings. But he would sort of play with it a little bit. And just to keep me off my toes in some of these negotiations and discussions, he would hit me with like a sentence that made absolutely no sense. I swear you could have spoken French or Chinese to me. It would have made more sense in some of the sentences that they came over the top with me at. And I think I eventually looked at them in person and said, I think I don't know what that means. I think that's why you used it. Oh, no. I thought, Dan's not devoid of negotiating skills. Dan just didn't know what all the slang was. Yeah, I think some vigilance on the Hoffmans will be necessary to make sure that, all these loans that we've read about them taking, all of this stuff, make sure that they can withstand losses and reasonably spend close to the salary cap. There are going to be NHL owners who can't spend to the salary cap as it gets to $108 million here over the next year and 2 years. And it will probably keep growing because look at hockey. Good gosh almighty, the NHL is right now kind of printing money. It's wonderful to watch. They've really got the game in a great place. You can complain about the referees all you want. You can complain about this team or that team, and you can lament that Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin are 38, 39 years old. But look at the new stars coming in. As Connor McDavid becomes the bridge, you're going to have Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini. You're going to have the players back at the Olympics. You're going to have Gavin McKenna and Keaton Verhoff, and you're going to have this whole new crop. And you're going to have all these hockey fans who came back to the game or came to the game because of Sidney Crosby. Oh, right there it is. It is now official. The Hoffmans have, in fact, entered into an agreement. I just saw the bulletin from the Penguins. Done deal. Now they got to come up with the cash. Okay, let me get to, I probably should stop and write that story, but we wrote it the other day, didn't we? It's kind of duh. Okay. Steve says, is it IK? Is it? I know Ville hasn't been great, but you can't be scratching him for Hayes and Heino. Once Gino and Lizzo are back, he's most likely the odd man out with Novak playing better, but right now he needs to be playing. Well, look, Koivunen has had more than his share of opportunity. Why can't you scratch him for Kevin Hayes if Hayes is playing better? Why can't you scratch him in favor of Tommy Novak? By the way, Danton Heinen is exempt from that conversation, Steve, because Heinen is playing center. We can debate all day if they should call up Tristan Brose instead of, Danton Heinen, and I would very much make that argument. But if Heinen's here, Heinen's playing center. Koivunen can't play center, so take that off the board. Koivunen will get back in. The problem with Ville Koivunen this season, and even when that kid's line was playing better and playing well, was his inconsistency. He had high moments that you noticed. He had vanishing moments that no one noticed. That's a huge problem. You've got to bring it, especially for a guy in his position. That third line, you can't take shifts off. I mean, they were playing against some of the top competition. Dan Muse dunked them in the deep end of the pool. Ben Kindle played really well. Rutger McGroarty played really well. Koivunen was up and down. He has one goal this season. What did he play? I'm gonna set the over/under here at 25 games. I'm gonna check here. I'm gonna go to Hockey DB real quick. By the way, we are in league with Puckpedia, so go there too. Okay, 21 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, -5. You're going to get scratched. I don't care who you are if you're putting up those kind of numbers. Let's see here. Hayes playing with Rutger and Kindle is ridiculous. Brazeau looked good with them. I would disagree on both accounts. The last 2 games, just no. Nothing has worked other than the top line. I would submit to you that you're injecting a bit of emotion there. Guys you like, guys you don't like, play well, don't play well based on your affinity or lack of affinity for them. I do see Brazeau getting, or not Brazeau. I do see Koivunen getting back in and reuniting that kids line. They have to do something. And granted, yeah, Hayes didn't really work well with Kindle and McGroarty. And you really don't want Hayes, Novak, and Brazeau. So I don't envy Dan Muse and the coaches trying to put the lines together, because other than the fourth and the top line, like that middle 6, there's nothing. There's nothing you can do to create 2 good lines there. I'm not even sure there's anything you can do to create 1 really good line out of those 6 or 7 players who are available. It's just going to be mix and match until Malkin is back. The Penguins canceled practice on Friday. We were supposed to practice in Montreal, so I literally made plans to drive to Montreal. I got into the hotel here at 2:30 a.m. By the time I throw down the the luggage, brush my teeth, whatnot. It's close to 3 a.m. and like, oh yeah, practice is canceled. Fortunately, the Penguins did text the traveling writers as not long after the game. They let us know, but I already made the plans, so I can't tell you where Evgeny Malkin is in terms of his recovery. The sooner he gets back, the sooner the entire team looks different. Same with Blake Lizotte. It's not a coincidence. Winless in 7 without Malkin and Lizotte in 7. Not a coincidence. What Malkin brings, the scoring and the line balance, what Lizotte brings, that tenacious defense. Should I call it tenacious D? Both on the PK and at even strength, late in games, all of those things the Penguins have been sorely missing without Blake Lizotte. Let's see here. JFKST1. Muse has a weak lineup. Everyone knew that this preseason. They had goaltending and special teams carrying, but once those run out, they're in trouble, and it is running out. A lot to be said for that. That the special teams and goaltending were, in fact, providing some wins that they otherwise wouldn't have had. Can't argue that whatsoever. Oh, was my mic gain getting high again? Let me try to turn it down again. Okay. Let's see here. RDP. Pens are like the Steelers. They are a middle team, which is a problem. Like, I feel they need tear it down and build new Pens hockey, like vets are making most mistakes than young player. I can get you there, RDP. I got what you're saying. A middling team. Here's the thing that we fought against, or we explained till I was blue in the face. When you tear it down, to the studs, and Kyle Dubas referenced this too, and I kind of chuckled. I'm like, this was a year ago that he said, we're not tearing it down. Because here's what happens when you do tear it down. You don't know when you're getting back. At this point, then, you're hoping for luck in the lottery. You're hoping this player or that player, this draft pick or that draft pick works out, and it takes years. By the time this draft pick you picked in the beginning of the process, is fully at full stride, now you're picking his line mate as a rookie. So this guy now is 8 years in. Look at Dylan Larkin and the Detroit Red Wings. Larkin's been there how long? And they're just now getting to the point where they're probably maybe going to make the playoffs this season. They have been terminally rebuilding since 2017. 16, 17? The Buffalo Sabres. Sure. You can... the ideal is the San Jose Sharks, where you just knock it down, you suck for a couple of years, and then you add Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, Leo Carlson. You add these guys. Okay, that is less frequent than getting stuck in the abyss. Far more often when you tear it down, you get stuck there than when you get to build it up. So the Penguins are trying this. I mean, I do think they're going to have to stink for a year or two, but they're not going to tear it down. Oh, Tim Saunders made a comment during the Flyers game last night and didn't know he was on a hot mic. I didn't, right? As long as I didn't do it. I'm going to have to look this up to find out what he said. I'm afraid to find out. Do teams have an avenue to complain about the refs to the league? Yes and no. Hockey is a small community front porch. You know, if if one guy is constantly giving you the short end of the stick, you can complain, but it's only a complaint. It's not like there's a department of complaints where they evaluate it. You basically pop off, and that's the end. If there was an indiscretion, or then you can, I suppose, more formally complain. Or if you think there was a blown call like last night, you can complain. But there again, what's the NHL going to do? Yeah, geez. Yeah, you were kind of right, eh? Yeah, that should have been a goal. We shouldn't have overturned it or waved it off. And that's the end. Okay, everyone's saying them. Let's see here. Big Joe says, I know he's not the savior, but it seems like the Pens play better, or at least with some more fight and swagger when a mama is in there. No offense to Danton Heinen, but him on the fourth line really is meh. I don't know. Was there really a team difference when Boko Amama was in the lineup? He's played 2 games. 6, 7. Kulak has had a rough start, says MTD Vipers. Kulak's had a rough start, doesn't look good. Thought Graves and Clifton were playing pretty good and are much offensively than much better offensively, I assume you mean, than St. Ivany and or Kulak. All in all, the pairings need fixing. I think you will, in fact, see, I think you'll see Muse go back to Graves and Clifton here. Kind of has to, doesn't he? Will Rockstar. I mean, it's been all the same guys getting beat lately. I don't want to point fingers, but Sid and Kindle have the team's worst plus minus at 6 and 9, respectively. I'm not going to put too much on Kindle. I cannot, in any of the goal analysis that I've done, I don't think I've ever circled 81 as the culprit this season. Honest to goodness, I don't think. Now, here's why plus minus can be such a tricky stat, is because his line hasn't scored. That third line with the kids was getting chances, and before that, they weren't putting the puck in the net. So, goals kind of hurt them more in the plus minus. Turnover says, why do the Pens have such a hard time simplifying their game? Is it arrogance? Is it beneath them to just clear the puck instead of go for a pass play? They seem to turn over 75% of the time. Turnover dog. I'm going to tell you, your perception is that they're trying to make plays. The reality is, too often they are just clearing the zone. Sometimes maybe that looks like an intercepted pass to you. When the Penguins are playing well, when they're going, that's when you see the defenseman pause and hold on to the puck for a moment and make the good breakout pass. The Penguins' breakouts were brutal on Thursday. Sorry, everyone's like, hey, did you see the news? Of course I saw the news. The Penguins' breakouts were brutal against Ottawa. Ottawa got the puck in deep, got after them, pounded them, hounded them, harassed them, and they never really got that rhythm out of the zone. They never got the speed through the neutral zone. They never got onto the rush game. As a result, they were chipping and chasing and chasing and chasing. That was really I think the story of the Penguins game. The only line that really got into the offensive zone with any sort of flair or pressure was indeed the top line. Okay. It was January 23rd. You wrote about St. Ivany. Him and Shea came up at the end of the season. How do you people know? I love the fact that you guys know what I wrote when I wrote it. I should actually commission you guys to go through all the stuff I've gotten wrong. That would be pretty funny. St. Ivany didn't play in the NHL. Actually, he did for the briefest of moments. Yeah, he started last year. He started last season in the NHL, and it wasn't going well, and they sent him down. Okay, you guys are like cross talking about St. Ivany now. Let's go to big guy. It would be okay if Graves would use his size to finish body checks. D guys are too easy to play against these days. Graves has been a bit tougher to play against, but no, you're waiting for those Connor Clifton type hits where the boards move. Yeah, that's the reason that you don't see a lot of that anymore, or as much of it, is the game is so much faster. First of all, it's hard to really line up a forward and just plaster him into the wall. Second of all, it requires the defenseman to step out of position to do so. So, what's more important in that moment? Putting a bruise on the left wing or taking the real estate? Coaches have decided en masse, take the real estate. Andre says, does 87 break the franchise record tomorrow night? I've got to think he does, right? I mean, you only get one bite at the apple to do it in Montreal. To have Sidney Crosby break a Penguins record in Montreal would be that would be the most unique place to do it, and the second best place besides Pittsburgh. Maddie says, is Hayes out when Gino comes back? Well, maybe. Hayes, Koivunen would be your two that. Well, actually, when Gino comes back, Heinen is the first out. Okay, the three. Muse will have to play with his lines because as I say it out loud each time, there's a line combination I can see which would involve So you don't want Ben Kindle playing fourth line. So if Malkin comes back, now you've got somewhere to put Novak. You keep Novak in the lineup probably. It seems that he is ahead of the depth chart on Kevin Hayes. So Koivunen, Hayes, Heinen, some combination thereof. Hey, Kyle is in the chat. Do you think there's any correlation with Malkin's injury and the Pens being able to close out games? No. Malkin's injury has nothing to do with the last few minutes. Blake Lizotte, yes. Obviously a lot more to it, but it looks like a ripple effect down the lineup. The Malkin effect is about balance in the lineup. Goals in the middle six, creating sustained offensive pressure. That's where Malkin's really. Yep, I know. I was right on it. Shelley's writing the story already. Shelley Anderson writing the story on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. The Penguins did post the Hoffman sales official. Yep, we know. Everyone here knew. We're good. Let's see here. The losing streak shows what Malkin and Lizotte mean to the team. Oh, they suspended Tim Saunders for 2 games. I definitely have to find out what he said now. I live in fear of that. Some of the stuff I've uncorked in my life. I am not a politically correct person. No hate or anything like that. But I've been known to tell a few jokes. I've been known to enjoy a few jokes. And yeah. Actually, I will tell you, I didn't know that during commercial breaks, the audience could hear me when I did play-by-play. I thought the commercial. And because most of the audience was actually streaming and not listening to me on some small FM Johnstown station, or AM, I don't even remember. Literally, when I showed up in Johnstown to do play-by-play for the season, they handed me a plastic shopping bag, like one of those blue plastic shopping bags with these old Radio Shack like headsets that would like fall off my head. It had like three adapters to plug in, to plug in, to plug in, to plug into this 1960s thing they wanted me to lug around. And I was like, yeah. I didn't realize the audience could hear me. There was this old arena in Toledo, Ohio. This place was so old, even in 2007, it was from the 50s. The glass in the offensive zone was chest high. Fans would literally set their nachos there. When they're sitting down, they'd kind of set the nachos on the glass, or they'd stand there and be having a conversation with their elbow into play. The Zamboni was one of, I don't know, some of you probably have never seen the old Zambonis, where it was actually a chain that went down to the ice, scooped the ice, dumped it into the big bucket that was on front of the Zamboni. Like the front of the Zamboni was this giant bucket that would just churn the ice and dump the ice in. In 2007, they were using this 50-year-old Zamboni. And the building was, I hated the place. And that Toledo team tortured my Johnstown Chiefs. By the way, Brett Peterson, assistant general manager of the Florida Panthers, was a part of that team. And I hated that Toledo arena. Hated it. And so we're in commercial break, and I'm just talking like, I can't wait till they bulldoze this place. Hell, give me some matches. I'll help them out. The league, through back channels were like, yeah, if you had gone another sentence further, we would have fined the organization like $10,000. It's like, okay, never mind. I was close. That close. Let's go to Sunshine here. Why does Muse not consider shootout duties to the youngsters every time Tanger, Sid, or Gino go at it? It's evident that they have a nonchalant attitude. Plus, since Fleury left, we've been stinking. Well, there hasn't been a shootout in a couple of weeks. The last shootout, they included Ville Koivunen. And it was Crosby, Rust, and Koivunen, was it? Or Rust, Crosby, Koivunen. Yeah, listen, none of the Penguins' young players have a great history in shootouts. They're not good at it. Rutger McGroarty has never taken one. Koivunen, I did a whole story on this on Pittsburgh Hockey Now, Sunshine. Where have you been? Actually, the one guy they really need to use is Kevin Hayes. Hayes is a 33%, 31% shooter, which puts him ahead of Letang and some of the guys who have really fallen the last couple of years. But I'm going to take issue with one word, and I hate this. I don't understand why fans go to the fact that if you're not successful, you didn't care. Nonchalant? You're telling me Sidney Crosby. Sidney Patrick bleeping Crosby doesn't care? Stop it. Will Horkoff is dominating for Michigan in college hockey. Yes, he is. NCAA leader in goals. Kindle and Horkoff, centers of the future. I don't know if Horkoff is a center or not. That is to be determined. I suspect he is a power forward. Bill Zonin, on the other hand, if he ever gets healthy, boy, this year has been brutal for him. One injury after another. Zonin will be a center of the future. Oh, may want to hold off your comparison. I'm not comparing anything I said to what the Flyers guy said. I'm just simply saying, I fear saying something stupid on a hot mic. Chris says, that's my hometown. Go Johnstown. Johnstown was such an interesting. Let's see here. Sweet Trim Dan. Actually, yeah, the Moroccan barber, a couple blocks away over on St. Catharines. trim me up today. I really needed it badly too. Like I was poofed out, and like it was 2 weeks after the Tampa guy. I didn't know what to do with my hair because the lady before me in Pittsburgh just like, pulled out the razors like, oh, missed a spot here. Doesn't matter. Anyway, do I think there is a chance we could see Murashov and Blomqvist with the team after the deadline? A chance? Sure. Quite worried with Shilov's recent performances. Shilov's was pretty good on Thursday, guys. Shilov's was really good on Thursday. The 3 goals he gave, we went through this before. We went through this before. Anyway, and Skinner's expiring contract. Well, that's actually why the trade made sense, because of Skinner's expiring contract. Kyle Dubas now has control of all options. Whoever deserves to be on the Pittsburgh Penguins bench and in the net will be on the bench and in the net. Period. End of story. That's Dubas couldn't have set himself up any better for post-trade deadline next season than he did. Last question. Okay, I've already done over an hour. If the Pens continue this downturn, at what point in the season do the Pens pull the plug? How many assets do you think they sell? Raquel, Rust, Carlson? Well, they don't have to sell anybody. And that is what Dubas has communicated. I hesitate to talk trades when you say sell, because Raquel is for sale now. Erik Karlsson kind of for sale now. Who's going to meet the price tag? Just because the Penguins have a downturn, you are not going to see Kyle Dubas have a sale. You're not going to see him lower the cost. You're not going to see him say, well, since we're losing, I guess I'll sell Raquel for less. It's not how this is going to work. They've got term on these guys. They've got one more year after this with Erik Karlsson. And quite frankly, I don't think Erik Karlsson re-signs with the Penguins. But if things are on the up and up, let's just say Dubas hits a couple home runs at the trade deadline, gets some young players, another home run in the draft. I don't think Erik Karlsson hates it in Pittsburgh. And I'm underselling it. I think Erik Karlsson was kind of happy playing with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and with the Penguins. I think he's pretty happy. So would he leave? Would he ask out? I don't think so. I think there's a certain resignation that whatever happens is going to happen. And you're not going to see him chase a Stanley Cup. Go to this team. It never. Ray Bourque is the one shining example of it working, where a guy hadn't won a Stanley Cup, gets traded at the deadline, and it worked. More often than not, you have a Jarome Iginla situation where you get traded to the best team and it doesn't work out, or you get traded to the team you think you fit with, or it just doesn't. It doesn't work. So that's it. We did more than an hour. I guess the sound, we got it fixed, and I had fun. I hope you had fun. Like, share, subscribe, criticize, sing praises, do all of that stuff. Subscribe to PHN Plus, and in the meantime,